Kartik, remember how guys developed our 1 inch at the hackathon, and now we're in this museum of the science, sharing the insights of the industry. But we can talk about this later, or maybe.
To me, it's always impressive that you kind of see just a hackathon idea turn into something this massive and actually be like a market mover in this entire ecosystem. So I'm always happy to be part of the 1 inch story and have them sort of invite me to be at these types of events, and can't wait to kind of have this conversation going today. Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about a lot of things that are happening in the world of just aggregation, DeFi, kind of how do we think about the world where more and more chains are existing now. And we have an amazing set of panelists who are going to be sharing their views, and you kind of have a good mix of institutions, DeFi, chains, research, all that's going on. And we're going to make this a more interactive conversation. So I do have specific questions for each of you, but it doesn't mean that you should just only answer your part. If somebody agrees or disagrees, just chime in. And if you don't, I'm going to call you out so you can. So I'll be monitoring that piece. I do want to start off with you, Sergey. And what I want to ask is, effectively, how do you think about the world of aggregation now? 1inch aggregation started just before, more than 5 years ago now, and we kind of knew that there were 3 big dexes in Ethereum. We wanted to manage liquidity better. But now it's an entirely different world. Has anything changed in terms of your idea about like what it means to aggregate?
Yes, the world changed a lot since we introduced aggregation in 2019. Actually, it was just a fun idea, right, on the hackathon. And actually, only 2 people said this is the next big thing, and we didn't believe in that.
2 people who are not you. And Anton.
Yeah, it was Liam from ETH Global. He said like, oh, I need such a tool. So people were still using all the DEXs directly, and then a switch came, and people started to use DEX aggregators. Xerox pivoted from limit order protocol to also DEX aggregator. Paraswap came, and then we have seen change in I think 2022 when CastSwap started to offer intent-based swaps. So, and all this aggregation logic went into behind the scenes. So for the normal user just have seen all the rates and then just decided to exchange on that. And the protocols try to optimize their result for the user. And so as we also decided to go intent-based way and introduce kind of more decentralized way to exchange assets with Dutch auction, what Anton invented, my co-founder. And also Uniswap, I started with Uniswap X, the same approach with the intent base. So the world changed a lot. So we got better user experience for the users by not...
So better or bad?
Better.
Better. It could go either way.
So they don't need to think about how it's going to be executed, how the routing path looks like. So this Pathfinder, what we have as a product, and the aggregation itself became more infrastructure tool, how I see it. And actually here, this topic on the panel is too complex for the normal people. So they actually don't want to understand what is under the hood. They just want to make sure that they get what they expect. So, and nowadays we see also the cross-chain intent-based swaps, not only adapting through 1inch. There are other people who are also betting on that. Uniswap tried to figure out to set up a standard for EVM compatible chains together with across. So, and yeah, it's completely different. And we go into the direction of the same user experience as we have in centralized exchanges. We have just simple confirmation of, okay, I want to do that. And the magic behind just executes.
So maybe for 1inch specifically now, what is the hardest kind of problem that you see for your product? Like, is aggregation just like we just need to find the best route and it's just now an optimization problem? Or are there still other unknowns that just sort of came up now because now you only finally have like 100 chains with something going on in liquidity, and the problems were like just not known because we didn't get to this scale?
So I personally, I'm a very lazy person. That's why I'm maybe a software engineer. And I hear sometimes also from my co-founder Anton that when he reviews the code from the people, he's saying sometimes, I have the feeling that this person is not lazy enough to be a software engineer because they write like 2,000 lines of code. So we try to use the same approach here. I don't.
Maybe these days AI is writing that 2,000 lines.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's maybe too lazy.
Actually, AI is also very lazy. Sometimes, like I write prompt, what properly explain what they need to do, and they don't finish it because it's just too lazy. I have the feeling that they need to save energy or something, electricity costs or whatever. So we try to replicate it also to the world, to our products as well. And I don't wanna, or our team, we don't wanna take care how it's gonna be routed. There are professionals out there, market makers, professional market makers, arbitrage traders, who get the opportunity to integrate themselves in our protocols to earn on the orders. So, and this is our way what we go with intent-based protocol and intent-based cross-chain protocol. So we don't have to care about that. And this is, from our point of view, very important in our decentralized finance. Decentralized means there are a lot of actors, and if someone of these actors will not participate anymore, there are still other actors who will participate. And this is what we have right now with one-inch swaps here.
Amazing. I do kind of want to do the infrastructure side first, so I'll kind of ask you the next question, Sandeep. Modular blockchains is something that you guys sort of pioneered, and my kind of question is, how has that vision sort of evolved now, and how do you think about interoperability as Polygon?
Yeah, I mean, now, like previously when we used to see, when we all started, like, 2017, 18 days, like, blockchains were like one state machine and all things happening on one single blockchain. And now it's very clear, especially with like, the Coinbase, Stripes of the world and Robinhoods of the world launching their own chain, like blockchains should be seen as these, hundreds of, probably in future, like thousands, already there's thousands, but thousands and thousands of segregated, separate state machines or ledgers, you can say, thousands of separate ledgers, but all somehow interacting and composing with each other. How can we reach that? And I think with the aggregation, like, there is no native aggregation mechanism till now, which actually, tightly integrates these different state machines together. And that's what we were trying to do with AgLayer. Using ZK proofs, can you have like one single, view of all the ledgers working together? Of course, it has like a lot of nuances related to, what is the finality of each of the chains, and what is that view? Will that view a consolidated global view of all the ledgers together? Will that be honored by individual chains and all that? And how do you make sure that that is honored and all that? And there are both social plus technological ways to enforce it. But yeah, that's where, like, we are seeing interoperability becoming. I mean, first of all, it's like very, very fundamental. I think interoperability is now valued more, this aggregation is valued more intrinsically than individual blockchains, because individual blockchains, the block space has become like very commoditized. Very few.
So basically infinite.
Yeah, infinite, and then very few blockchains, very few chains can offer you a block space which is differentiated with liquidity or some consumer attention and whatnot. Or proprietary flows, right? Like Binance BNB chain and all that. Like, very few block spaces are differentiated.
So where is your time going as Polygon as a company in terms of making cross-chain more interesting?
Yeah. So we basically last 2 years we focused a lot on purely the aggregation and enabling this, enabling this space where people can create infinite amount of block space for themselves, but that's still integrated and kind of is like one single view of that block space. Now I think like these are like waves. So now that part is already built out. There are like 10, 15 chains, and continuously we are seeing some big players joining in those, this kind of cluster. And now what we are also focusing, like these days we are more focused on engineering wise, is to increase the capacity of individual ledger itself, like which is the Polygon POS, for example. So we already,
And when you say capacity, you mean just transactions per
yeah,
second, or
yeah, individual block space, because the truth, like as we always keep discussing, always lies in the middle, right? So you will have infinite block space, but you will also have some differentiated block space with liquidity and all. So Polygon POS, we are like doubling down on that. So that block space, like we used to do 200 TPS roughly, we increased it to 1000 TPS. Now on 8th of October, we have a new hard fork going in, which will take us to 5000 TPS. And I think within 1 year, we expect to tap somewhere around the capacity wise, like Solana like capacity. Then you add these abilities, like I'm saying this in terms of the tech, it should have ability to have priority lanes. Like for EVM, like how can we have priority lanes which is like local fee markets, what Solana has, but these are like prior lanes that somebody can come and buy, let's say 10% of the block space permanently for themselves, and they pay a fixed cost for this. And
that's a very interesting one. Just introducing rent.
Yes, absolutely. Because see, the block space, because of its infinite, capacity, now you have infinite block space. If you want to differentiate block space, what's the way? The way is like either you provide better
Private
SLA,
highway.
yeah, private SLA to the user, that then people will pay premium. And otherwise the only way is that you have a high amount of liquidity and or proprietary flows, right? Like BNB has and all that. Then and only when then you will have a high gas fees or high premium block space. Those kind of things we are also seeing. So this then we will port into the stack. Then anybody can have this infinite block space with the provisioning for a differentiated block space inside.
That's a very interesting concept. If somebody wants to jump in, they can. I feel like.
Yeah, the panelist set is really interesting because like you're doing stuff from different sides, but like at the end when we have like actual abstraction, right? The user will get just one number. And this number is going to be like, you'll pay like X amount. And it's going to be optimized from one side by Sandeep and from the other side by Sergey. So like in the composite, like user would never know that like his transaction is going to land on Polygon and going to be handled by like the intents from 1 inch. But like
it's about who's your customer. His customers is everybody in the room. My customer is him.
Oh yeah. No, like it's really because like it's really funny. I hear like the first answer and the second answer. It's kind of like in my head, yeah, like on the wallet it's gonna be composite like fee.
It's like wait until you get to forwards on this. Like let me just buy the block space like airlines buy fuel.
Yeah. No, like you're just like this will get you 100 kilometers for like $1, and you're like, yeah, holy shit, like take my money. So yeah, the abstraction future is going to be like, I'm not sure anyone can actually imagine that because we started this like journey from as an industry from a space where like, yeah, we're going to remove middlemen. Like there's going to be no more middlemen. Like banks are so bad, and now like you open your website, you open your front end to your wallet. Like the wallet calculates and creates with the website creates a transaction that's like verified by third party like security service that like thinks, is it a honeypot or is it something like, is it actually like something valuable? And then another third party service calculates probable fees. And then like the transaction is sent by the wallet to the hardware wallet provider. And then like it's signed and sent to like the intent protocol, which is like end up in RPC and then a relay and then builder and then relay and then proposer and then like it lands somewhere and like the 25 like companies.
It sounds like a Ticketmaster receipt for all the taxes we're gonna say for buying any trade.
Yeah, like and the cool part about that we actually got a huge optimization out of all of this. Because we have competition on every like layer. And I think chains were not actually competing for a really long time, but like we are coming into the world where they start like one-to-one, like
just so maybe it's a good time for you to kind of share us like how do you guys fit in here and sort of how do we think about security here as now a global state?
Yeah, like our role here is well, simple, a little bit more simpler than the guys, because like we're not like like doing rocket science. Basically, our role is to be the infrastructure for all of this, hopefully, because like when it's becomes harder to vendor lock people into like an ecosystem, and it's going to be like more fluid. I think like more like I don't think I see that more and more people want to have their own corner with their own unique flavor, and with like we providing that. That's the first, like the second interesting outcome that we see and want to help with is bridging, of course, like how with Intents they and like with the cross-chain apps, the bridging will become even more, well, influential, because like we kind of played around with bridging and like lost a lot of money, and then the volumes kind of dropped and never recovered. I think like we will see much more of this. And with Intents, the third part that we do, like the liquidity management part, like we have vaults that supply for that. And it's hard to predict right now, but maybe like Intents will require some optimizations from the inventory management standpoint. It's kind of like the current market, at least as I analyze it, is like ruled by the people that actually have money to fulfill Intents, because like each time you touch DEX, you can like lose a lot of advantage. So I think we'll have like staked Intents, maybe like not who am I to judge? Staked Intents, maybe Intents that are based on like some shared inventory, like we'll see. But yeah, like and like we are helping with all three of those. So I kind of in a good spot, I think.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, like all of you are in a way different stacks of effectively the life cycle of a transaction too. What I want to do is actually want to get to Esther. So from Crypto.com's kind of perspective, how does a user actually look at aggregation? Like, do they even know what's happening when they want to swap a coin with another coin, or kind of what do you do to kind of help them understand what's happening behind the scenes?
Yes, sure. So crypto.com, we actually have two kind of business, right? So we have a centralized exchange, and then I'm the wallet, right? The on-chain. So maybe I could just focus on the on-chain part. Honestly, we are trying to target to retail users. We want to make everything so simple. And how I think about it and how, we used to talk to the team is, does your mom know how this works? Does it actually matter? So when we're trying to look at, what people are attracted to right now at the start of the year is like, honestly, a lot of meme coins, and they want to get into meme coins. So how do they do it? Some people actually wanted to, buy USDC first, and then they realized that, hey, I bought USDC on ETH, and then the meme coin is on Solana. Then how do I actually get the money there? So yeah, so I feel like there's, yeah. Yes. So yeah, I think over the past 12 months, there has been a lot of development on the UI UX side to kind of make this very simple for users. I still remember a few years ago when you do a swap, it's definitely just kind of chain to chain, and then you want to do a bridge is another feature. Now it's all kind of grouped together, right? You just choose what token you want on what chain, and then you choose your destination token on a destination chain, and all the aggregators, all the bridges kind of work together to give us a simple solution. But in the back, it's actually you have to do a bridge first, and then you do a swap, or swap first to a bridge, depending on the liquidity to give the users the best price. So for us as a wallet platform, I love working with 1inch and other aggregators, because I don't have to do the complicated calculations myself. I will ping them via API SDK to get the best rate, and then we show the user the best rate. And then the user can either trust us, or they also have the option to choose. So yeah, I think honestly, users don't really care. They just need to know whether they can get what they want in the end in a very simple and fast manner.
This is such an interesting conversation, because I feel like this has come up multiple times over the past couple of days. I've been going to panels, I've been on panels, and we've all been here long enough to remember what it was like when there were a few chains. It feels like, Sandeep, you mentioned this, where the end user and the person that you're building for has changed dramatically today, and people care more about, they don't care what chain they're on, right? I think that's going to continue to be the trend, where people care about what the interface looks like And really the end customer becomes someone that is building the product that the consumer is going to use. The stack keeps getting bigger because you're building this beautiful, UI for it, and you're building the engine underneath it with the UI, and you're building, all of the network layer and everything like that. So it's fascinating to think about how all of this gets monetized as well, because you mentioned that it used to be very different, and I think we optimized for transaction fees and things like that. And I think as block space becomes commoditized and there are hundreds of chains that you're going to be plugged into, that doesn't work anymore. So, how do you actually monetize that and build these, front ends and these products that are really useful for consumers? So it's just an observation that I've had, how much the world has changed really over the past few years. And I think it's incredibly, I think it's an incredibly positive thing for our industry that we've started to think about things this way, and we've started to actually build things that people are using, as opposed to trying to build the most technologically advanced chain and then hoping people are going to come use it.
I mean, maybe to add on to that, Eric, like, have you kind of noticed from all of your research any other trends on how cross-chain liquidity is managing or being managed? Like, we kind of say there's 1,000 chains, but I mean, are all of them equally being used, or are we seeing obviously power laws? Just kind of any kind of insight into what you've seen.
Well, first of all, we run a data and research company, so this is actually a massive pain for me for us to collect the data now, as everything's become a little bit more fragmented. It used to be easier when it was EVMs, and now it's,
one RPC URL for everything, and you just
and everybody's going to be. I feel like you're going to see every company's going to launch a stable coin, everyone's going to launch their own chain, whatever it is, and I think that's fine. But you're right. I still think the majority of liquidity and capital is in some of the larger, more established chains, or you have the opposite where it's an app-specific chain like Hyperliquid or something like that, where capital flows in because it is a very specific use case. So I think where you're going to see, and what we see where you see capital move away from some of these chains, is where they don't have either integrations with products that work or a very defined use case.
I mean, I'll ask it to you, but I think anybody can comment. I feel like Misha may have something more to say here, but is the reason, kind of from your perspective, why people are just kind of picking a bunch of other chains is just better security for your assets? Or is it purely that that's where most likely that money is going to be used, so they want to just be as close to the chain as possible? Like, I guess, especially with like more layer twos, how much consideration does security get of that chain versus just the fact that it's fast and I can just transfer things in and out, so I may not have to think about parking risk?
Like proof of stake security, I'm not sure that's a huge consideration for that. But like security in terms to be flexible, like we don't know, especially with this new regulatory stuff, like we don't know what happens when the president goes away. Right, so you might need, the people
whole
retire,
different security.
People retire, right? Like the grandmas retire, everything changes. Yeah, like yeah, and actually, like, what happens if you're a roll-up and you need reversible transactions? Yeah, like talk to L1 and like, guys, can you fork please for me, like real quick? No,
What's
like
Sandeep's Telegram?
yeah, like it's not Hyperliquid. You have like more than 14 operators. So yeah, like it's gonna be really hard to organize like 1.2 or something million validator nodes to like rewrite the history. So yeah, like like how do you handle chargebacks? Like actually, like as an L2. Like chargebacks are like everywhere in the world, like at least in the developed part of the world, right? Like you see a charge, you don't understand what
big feature for having credit in any place. Like you have the ability to, in a way, block or reverse.
Yeah, so like that, I don't think it's like at the start we had this like childish idea that like, oh, like I'm a big boy, I can like do whatever I want, and like I'll build everything from scratch, and like for every new idea we had a new chain. I don't think that's that. I just think that's like the people are trying to, like, especially the big new players come in, they try to be really careful. So they hire really good consultants and like how, like guys and girls, like how do we actually do the stuff that we might want to be needed to do in the future? And the answer for that is usually like, yeah, you kind of like want to be L1 for a lot of it if you want to be like super careful. if you want to optimize it a bit, become L2. I don't think like it's about straight of security in a like narrow sense that we use it, the word. I think it's like in general, like how do I create a system where, yeah, I can be flexible and in control, at least for the first leg of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, see, there are two parts. It's a very loaded, statement that you made, Misha. That see, there are three parts of the security. First is the chain security, right? So with the zero knowledge technology and all that, the chain can have a decent amount of security, even if you are a L2.
Is that security or is that guarantee of
Guarantee of settlement. It's like settlement guarantee, right? Like, this is like one notion, Misha, like, I think like Circle has also said this, that, they are doing an L1, or this Matt Huang doing
Tempo.
the Tempo, which is apparently Sprite chain, but I think it's like, it's not Stripe chain, it's a paradigm chain, right? So, but basically the thing is that notion of finality is that, oh, because it's an L1, we need a faster finality, and an L1 you will have a faster finality and all that. But like, what is finality then? Like, if you have an L1, and we can have an L1 here and 5 people are staking it, can you say that, a $10 million transaction is final? Like on our chain, technically, yes, it will be final, but we are on a Telegram group and we can, anytime reorg to a particular place. So the finality is not defined by L1 or L2. Finality is defined by how sturdy is, once a transaction is done, how sturdy that transaction is, and how much, or who all are the actors, and how quickly they can organize to, undo that finality.
But it's also a function of time, right? It's not just like one time we choose not to do anything, but it has to be consistent over a long period of time.
Exactly. And then anytime it can, like, if I had, like, let's say I was using this particular L1, which is, let's say, this panel L1, right? And then, I was using it for 5 years and it was going fine. And one day, one particular, like a sovereign country,
Like some DAO gets hacked, for
or
example.
let's say, very practical example I'll give you. Like these days, what is happening, let's say China and US, and even now these days, like India and US are getting at loggerheads and all that. An Indian company transacts $500 million and US government says, we are banning this. Like, let's say TikTok. TikTok is an example. Reverse the TikTok's $500 million transaction, or stop their, capital there, and they were keeping the capital on this. So that is the semblance of finality when we talk about. And on Ethereum, for example, even if government wanted to, they couldn't do it, right?
Well, technically, like Circle can just blacklist the address, right? So you can still transfer it.
Yes. That is also one part that,
But yeah, if it was just ETH, yes, you're right.
But that's the social part. Like in this case of an L1, like this is a kind of a,
If it's a native token of the chain, what you said makes sense.
Correct. But I'm saying, like, even on this, like even on the Ethereum case, I'll tell you, like, where the security comes from. That, Circle would have that, let's say, how much Circle has, like $30 billion, right? So if Circle blocks $500 million for a particular country or a company, they risk their entire business. So Circle market cap 50B, that is actually also is guarding that. Because that 50B, completely goes away, then nobody's going to touch USDC ever if that happens, like on a sovereign scale. So, but I'm talking more about like so Circle is probably a lower probability it can happen, but for an L1, because I'm seeing a lot of small teams launching the chains, they don't have any ability to get like large number of validators and all that. And they will say that, with 5-10 effective validators who control more than 66%, they will say this is an L1. And then that will give a wrong semblance, and we will find out when, something like, FTX equivalent of this will happen someday, and then they'll say, oh, this was a problem. With an L2, that, okay, in like 30 minutes, once goes to Ethereum, there is no change in finality after that, once it's there. So one part is that. But the other part, like what Misha also mentioned, is that, which is very important, is that, these days we are seeing a lot of money is moving across the chains. And that money movement, if you see right now, let's say Layer 0 is a big player, or like a Cross and all that. And most of those bridges actually do not have any crypto economic security. Right, so like many times, like for USDT 0, there is, probably USDT, it's extremely popular, really, and we know that, it's connected to Tether and all that is safe, but actually there is like one single party who's transacting between two chains, right? And in many of the chains, I've seen that, the DVNs that are like, very limited number of DVNs. So the security semblance comes on that also in the in-flight, like what happens in the in-flight. And then the third part is this, what Misha went on, very, very interesting thing, because it's a big topic right now, that reversible payments. But I want to say that, from a blockchain perspective, the reversible payments are not going to hit the finality layer. Finality layer is much below it. It will be a smart contract where I paid to you.
Just kind of like the buffer of, like, I'll just settle in 2 days, but.
Correct. So either you don't settle it for 2 days, so you won't receive it as a merchant for 2 days, so I can reverse it. So that's one part. Second part is, even if you got it after 2 days, this is how it happens in the normal payment world. Once you got it after 2 days, I can still reverse, but then I have to go through a legal route. It doesn't affect that, that asset, USDT, USDC, whatever it is on chain, is already settled in some form, either to smart contract. So the layer 2 or layer 1 doesn't make any difference on that. It's handled on the smart contract level. So that's why I'm saying, like, this is the third level. This reversible transaction, you do it purely, you handle it on smart contract level, doesn't affect this finality.
No, it's super actually helpful. So one thing I guess I've just noticed is that we've been talking about it from the point of view of like an individual retail investor. But Eric, I guess I'm curious on how much of what we said actually matters to an institutional side. And do you kind of feel like there's some things that are correct assumptions or incorrect assumptions, or just how does an institution think here, and any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can share a little bit just based on conversations we have with our end users, who are generally institutions and enterprises. And it's interesting because I feel like there's a split now where a consumer doesn't care that much about the security of the network and, the chain that they're using, whereas the conversations we have with institutions, they very much care. And I think if you think about people that have been trying to come into this industry and figure out how they're going to do things on chain, and this is, I very much believe you're going to see stable coins flow over into DeFi very soon, and you're going to see real institutional use. They're asking, okay, well, like, tell us about the technical specifications. And, there are a lot of, I think this is where the tech actually matters. I actually don't think that today, like, TPS and all of that is as important as it used to be. But the security, if we actually do want to see institutional adoption, really does matter at this point.
Well, absolutely. And that's why what we are seeing is the security is being played out at 2-3 different levels. One is at the chain level security. One is the interop level security. And then the third one is the asset level security. Like, for example, with the USDT, USDC, like USDT 0 is literally USDT's CCTP, right? Like CCTP, we know, is the Circle's, universal bridge. And basically Circle has access to smart contracts on these assets, on those sites. So CCTP, literally when you want to move, the Circle burns your coins here, mints here, right? And in that case, like, the argument to the enterprises is that at the end, it's Circle only, right? If Circle screws up, they can anytime ban your asset on one chain or the other, right? So that security, asset by asset. So all I'm trying to say is there is a chain level security, interoperable security, and chain by chain security. USDT 0 is the same. It's literally like the, fully backed by Tether and everything, and very amazing team, and everything is great about USDT 0. But they are also doing the same thing, like the asset is controlled by them and they issue. So even for an enterprise, that it is the underlying asset I'm consuming. So I'm just relying on their messaging system also. So,
and that's easy to explain, I think, or easy enough. I think the big thing that we're going to run into as an industry is explaining exactly what you just said for every other asset out there that institutions want to touch.
That's where it gets complicated, right? So, you have like some, I don't want to say meme coin, but let's say for Polygon, like you have the Pol token or Solana token or ETH token is moving through some bridge. There, surely, like, enterprises are going to say, I'm not going to be a party to this counterparty risk here. And that's where, like, what Misha is saying, that one form is that, something like Symbiotic provides them crypto-economic security, which is like, $1 billion is staked in it. So that up to $200-400 million moving through this bridge is fine. Beyond that, I have to add my risk parameters and all that.
So one other thing I guess I'm kind of curious about, and I'll ask this to everybody, as in I would like everybody to answer, but don't go into explanations. I'm just kind of curious. Like, unless you have a really nuanced position, don't comment, because I have like 2 questions after this. But my question is to each of you: do you actually consider bridging versus aggregation versus like intents and like just share security as individual things to make cross-chain more compatible, or do you kind of consider all of them being part of the same thing because you need all of them? And like effectively, like, are we betting between each of these to win over time, or we need all of them to actually make cross-chain work? I'll start with Misha, which is probably a biased answer.
Yeah, no, like you don't want to, like, in terms of security, you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket ever. I think like
Proof of stake, though. I mean, like, but that's true for any layer 1 or layer 2.
Yeah, but like when you abstract them away, when you aggregate stuff, when you create a really strong interoperability and cross-chain liquidity, there should be caveats to that. Like that, there should be limits.
Yep.
There should be scoring. There should be like that, as I mentioned, right? Like third-party provider that will tell you like you actually touching the chain that's like kind of like mixer. Right, like I'm not even talking about even security in terms of like crypto economic security. Like you're gonna be touching like Tornado Cash with this transaction, so like be careful. Or like yeah. So like we'll need more sophisticated scoring mechanism. This chain is like super cheap, and like you can get asset that is kind of like close to USDC, but like not that, but then you can then take this asset to the chain 3 and like exchange to USDC after that, like touch Salmonella token in the process, or like do something like that might like lose you like up to 10% of your money. So no, like it's I think it's all part of the play, and for some application, aggregation makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you launch in a like a wider ecosystem and you already have like like sister chains or sister like infrastructure that you already know you're going to be like pushing together, like aggregation makes a lot of sense for like straight up general purpose like interoperability, especially intense, like will make a lot of sense. Like I'm not talking like futuristic here, but like the trading agents, like they would be the API interface might be way easier to them. Like just bring me this asset by like cheaper at the cheapest price at whatever chain.
Esther, I'll have you go next.
Yeah, sure. So the question is whether we think about it separately or kind of together as a package, right? So as a, thinking from the end user perspective, this is all overall a package, because this is just, everything is just a component to achieve the means. So when we think about it, okay, what does the user want is definitely the best rate, lowest fee, and fastest. But then from the builder perspective, we are assessing each of those components like separately. So what Eric said about institutions being really concerned, and they ask a lot of technical questions about security. This is also what we do. We choose our partners super carefully. I think like everyone knows the largest hacks and exploits actually happen on bridges. Bridging is actually super dangerous. So we definitely spend a lot of time with the security team, everyone assessing it, poking holes into how the smart contract and everything is built. So from a builder perspective, we assess all of those kind of separately. How do we do gas fee transactions, right? Like, 1inch has the Fusion product, other chains, use different methods to achieve the gas fee. So gas fee and also swap fees separately. So I would say it depends on who you are. For the end user, we definitely don't want them to be concerned about any of these things. It should be borderless, they don't have to think about chains. They have to just trust us. What we want to do is want to build a product that people trust, so that when they come to us, they know that this is secure, and we're offering kind of what's best out there in the market.
That's the best route for the user. Eric?
I'm just picturing trying to have like my grandmother bridge between chains, and I just can't picture that.
And not having enough ETH to pay for the gas fees.
I mean, I think like my simple answer here is all of these are a package, and I think that's exactly the way to think about it. Maybe in the future we see one of these win out as being the ideal solution, but right now, I think they're all equally important, and if you actually package them in the right way where the user doesn't have to deal with it, that's where you want to end up.
So I think aggregation, bridges are infrastructure products. So it's not end customer related at all. So what end customer wants, I fully agree, just it wants that it's going to be executed for the benefit of the user. That's it. So that's why intent-based on-chain swaps and cross-chain swaps are like is the solution to get more people into the space, because it feels already same as centralized exchanges. Yeah, so you just sign, confirm, and you get it. So and yeah, from our point of view, aggregation bridges, also native bridges from Circle, this is something what no one needs as an end user. Even if you need to move some assets, potentially you want to spend your USDC for ETH between different chains. So you don't go to Circle Bridge and move your USDC and then you do something. It's too complicated. Yeah. I like the approach what Steve Jobs introduced with the first iPhone. Just do it simple. Don't use a pencil to control your smartphone. Use your finger. you have a finger. You can just use it.
5 styluses, right?
Yes. The same we do at 1inch. Just we make it just simple.
Yeah, I mean, as Esther said that, for the user's perspective, it has to be very simple. So they have to bundle everything in. But from the infrastructure perspective, like these things all play out at different levels. Like, for example, you mentioned about a simple bridge interoperability, then, the aggregation, and then the shared sequencing. So the bridge interoperability, obviously you have to have basic, security guarantees around, like, whether the bridge is secure or not. When you go into the aggregation, then the aggregation needs to, like, all of these things are about the control and the reorg protection. So the bridge, let's say, will have the least amount of control on the chains, right? So, both the chains, bridge is waiting for one chain to finalize and then give it on the other chain. Then you go into the aggregation. The aggregation, you need a little bit more protection that if something is finalized on one particular chain, over time it will get you have the guarantees, like the ag layer, for example, where you have the guarantees that this chain will finalize in this particular state route, and so you can do something on the other side. With shared sequencing, because you are doing atomic transactions, so you can't even rely on eventual finalization. You want that rate that is being quoted to the actual user, that rate is also preserved. Right? Because in simple aggregation, if this chain finalizes right now, and then you basically offered a trade to the user, but on the other chain that the price changed on the DEX, then it doesn't work. But for shared sequencing, you are actually giving an atomic transaction between two chains. So there you need full control over the block production also. So it also about, like, it boils down to what kind of control the interop layer is providing on the service you are bundling to the end user, and then it goes up the stairs in terms of the control. Interoperability, simple interoperability, you don't have no control on the chains, on the reorg protection. You just have to rely on whatever chain is offering as the interoperability. Aggregation, you need to control the settlement, eventual settlement, and shared sequencing, you need 100% control on the block production itself. That means the settlement also you have full control.
Amazing. That's all the time we have for today. So I want to give a massive thank you to Misha, Sir Eric, Sergey, and Sandeep.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody, and thanks for an amazing conversation.